Is COVID-19 driving up rates of diabetes, and is keto the answer? Find out today here on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, if you want to engage live in the content, you really need to go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. At Living Low Carb Man is the username if you want to engage and be a part of the live show. We do go live Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. On the weekend sometimes at 5 p.m. Eastern sometimes. Pretty much always we go live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time right here on Instagram Live. We also simulcast over here on my Facebook page, like Candace just came in. Thanks for being here today, you guys. And then over here on my YouTube channel, we also have a live stream, just like Linda just popped in to say good morning. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay on IGTV here at Instagram. We also throw the past episodes up over at YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants. You can also go youtube.com/livinglowcarbman, just like the username here in Instagram. And then finally, we do have a website for Jimmy Rants at jimmyrants.com. And once you are there, you can see all the past episodes. And a lot of people want to support the show because you get value out of what we do here. If that's you and you feel like I'm adding value to your life, then you can add value back to my life. Click on that Patreon link, and any donation you can give would be greatly appreciated. Okay, you guys, so I wanted to talk about COVID-19. Remember COVID-19? I know it feels like so long ago in the discussion of things, but we're still dealing with the ramifications of this. And the longer COVID-19 has been out there, the more we're learning about some of the effects that are happening to people that get this COVID-19. And by the way, I'm involved in a study of COVID-19 with the ring that I wear. So this is the Oura ring. It tracks your sleep and body temperature and all kinds of little biomarkers all throughout the day. And I've been involved in a COVID-19 study with them probably since mid-March, when all this kind of lockdown and everything started happening. They're like, okay, we want to conduct a study. I think it's the University of California, San Francisco that's doing this study. But they want to look at, is there a correlation between the bio data that you get from your ring, for example, and then predicting that you would get COVID-19. So that's kind of interesting. So every single day I've been doing this little survey of, do you have any of these symptoms? Have you been tested for COVID-19? Yes or no? What's your current temperature? And I've been taking my temperature and posting it and sending it to them every day. Well, yesterday I got a COVID-19 antibodies test in the mail, which those of you that follow Jimmy Rants, I did this test right about 6 weeks ago. And it came back negative for both of the antibodies. So I won't know the results of this one, but it's kind of interesting. I've not had any symptoms of anything. Of course, you can be asymptomatic and still have had COVID-19. But it's interesting, kind of the things that are going on out there. But one of these news stories I'm going to read to you here, it was really interesting when I found out, Newsweek, by the way, has this first one. I found out that they're starting to look at, a lot of the experts are analyzing these patients who get COVID-19, and they're discovering some things that are happening to them. And one of the things is they're finding COVID-19 is triggering, get this, diabetes. COVID-19, the disease caused by this new coronavirus, may trigger diabetes in patients. Experts in the metabolic condition believe. This was a letter that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. An international team of diabetes researchers say COVID-19 has now been linked to new cases of the condition. Those who already have diabetes have been found to be the ones who experience the most severe metabolic complications. These include problems caused by dangerously high blood sugar levels for type 1 and type 2 diabetics. This is the interesting part, guys. I don't think it's been underscored nearly enough in the mainstream of talking about COVID-19, how much metabolic health matters here. And it does not surprise me that we're seeing a higher occurrence of type 2 diabetes, for example, because of COVID-19. Because watch what happens when you get COVID-19. What's the first telltale sign? It's a cluster of what? Inflammation. And at the heart of all disease that happens in the human body, inflammation is the thing that instigates it. Okay? So if you have this acute level of inflammation come on all of a sudden on your body, and you were already maybe pre-diabetic, maybe metabolically damaged in some way, suddenly you get COVID-19, your body's fighting it off, and the immune system's trying to deal with the inflammation that's happening in your body. I'm not surprised that there would be new cases of diabetes as a result. In the 6 months since the COVID-19 pandemic started, diabetes has now emerged as a risk factor for a severe case of the disease, according to the authors of this paper. Around 422 million people worldwide currently have diabetes, according to the World Health Organization. And research suggests there is a link between stress and the development of diabetes. Now that's interesting, because not only do we have stress that comes directly from people who would get COVID-19, we also, all of us, have had stress from being in lockdown, from being under new normal stuff. The circumstances have changed, the uncertainty of everything. I wonder if this increase in diabetes is not just going to be limited to people directly infected with COVID-19, but even people who don't get it just because of the stress factor. The team says that the stress of being seriously ill with COVID-19 could be involved in the new cases. True, but I would say stress alone, whether you've got COVID-19 or not, stress alone of dealing with a family member that has COVID-19, dealing with the loss of a job, dealing with disruptions in a whole lot of parts of our lives. I don't know about you, I'm a sports fan, and they've shown us a little bit of sports, but not nearly enough. And so I'm kind of jonesing for that kind of outlet for taking my mind off the real world stuff. All of that is contributing to stress in general. And yeah, Candace just said stress from poverty. I mean, there's so many things that are stressing people that I would not be surprised if it doesn't lead to an increase in diabetes. Of course, we also know stress does another thing. It makes you want to comfort eat. And so how much of the diabetes is people turning to comfort foods, which we know is code for crappy garbage galore, and the COVID-20 that you put on during the lockdown didn't just come with weight gain, it also came with higher blood sugars and exacerbating your insulin resistance to the point that now you have type 2 diabetes. And so this is kind of a concern that they're starting to look at. These researchers are pointing out that people are starting to develop diabetes because of COVID-19. They say that the coronavirus probably affects how the body processes sugar. So the receptor that the virus uses to enter our bodies is found in organs that play a key role in metabolism, like the pancreas, which we know is directly responsible for squirting out insulin to help control blood sugar. Fat tissue is also involved, small intestines, and the kidneys. So again, if you joined us late, we are reading from a story out of Newsweek, and it's all about a letter that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine by a team of researchers and medical professionals who are saying, hey, look, COVID-19 is having a profound impact on people actually getting type 2 diabetes, and they're explaining why. The team said that there are several precedents for viruses causing an intermediate type of diabetes. Listen to this one. The diabetes that they're calling this one is ketosis-prone diabetes. These include other members of the coronavirus family of pathogens, which includes the common cold and some other ones, which enter the body using this same receptor. So patients with severe acute respiratory syndrome, this was SARS, which also was caused by coronavirus, are known to develop high blood sugar levels while fasting and acute diabetes. Now, this is interesting. So someone gets coronavirus and they develop diabetes, this what they call it, ketosis-prone diabetes, and they start fasting. they have higher blood sugar levels. Now that's curious because some people report having higher blood sugar levels and while they fast. And so could that be this ketosis prone diabetes, that fasting and even a deep state of nutritional ketosis could be bringing this on? It's all very interesting. This is also seen in patients with the lung infection pneumonia, which is also caused by viruses. So Paul Zimmet, a professor of diabetes at Monash University in Melbourne and honorary president of the International Diabetes Federation, said in a statement, "We don't yet know the magnitude of this new onset diabetes in COVID-19 and whether or not it will persist or resolve after the infection has left the body. And if so, whether or not COVID-19 will increase the risk of future diabetes." You know what I liken this to? It's the same as those women who get pregnant and they get gestational diabetes. So when you have gestational diabetes, it acts just like type 2 diabetes does, except it happens when you are pregnant with child. Some women, after they're pregnant, have it go away. Other women, after they're pregnant, have it stick around. So I wonder if we're going to see the same thing with COVID-19, that they think it will be transient, but what it'll be is transient in some, but not in all. This is going to be an interesting thing to watch. Zimmet is the co-lead investigator of a new global registry of patients with diabetes linked to COVID-19. It is hoped that the COVID-Diab registry project will shed light on this link and find ways to help these patients get treated. Francesco Rubino, a professor of metabolic surgery at King's College in London, also the co-investigator of the COVID-Diab registry project, said, "Diabetes is one of the most prevalent chronic diseases, and we are now realizing the consequences of the inevitable clash between these pandemics. Given the short period of human contact with this new coronavirus, the exact mechanism by which this virus influences glucose metabolism is still unclear, and we don't know whether the acute manifestation of diabetes in these patients represents type 1, which would be the autoimmune version, type 2, or whether it's possibly a brand new form of diabetes." Guys, this would be revolutionary if they find that a virus can bring on a new form of diabetes. I mean, we have type 1, which is the autoimmune. Your pancreas doesn't make any insulin whatsoever. You're insulin dependent now for the rest of your life. Type 1.5 is another one. And this is where someone whose beta cell function has gone so low that they still make insulin, but it's insufficient to the point that they have to take a little bit of insulin in order to survive. It just can't do it without any insulin at all. Type 2 is where you have blood sugar abnormalities, but your insulin is still working. It's just not working appropriately because you have petered out your insulin ability to keep your blood sugar under control. And then type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's disease, where you have diabetes of the brain. So what would they call this? Type 4 diabetes? I don't know. And if it happened with COVID-19 coronavirus, what would stop it? And maybe it has already happened and they've diagnosed it as type 2 previously. What would stop it from having already been created by people that get the seasonal flu? It's all really fascinating things, that a virus can have such a profound impact on blood sugar levels that it forms into diabetes. Is this fascinating? Zimmet said, "By establishing this new global registry, we're calling on the international medical community to rapidly share relevant clinical observations that can help answer these questions." Anna Morris, the assistant director of research at the charity Diabetes UK, who did not work on this article, told Newsweek that we know there is some evidence to suggest that viruses can, in some cases, trigger type 1 diabetes in those with a predisposition to the condition. Now that makes sense, because type 1 diabetes is where the body starts attacking itself. So that's what autoimmune disease is. The body sees healthy tissue as a foreign enemy and it starts attacking. That same immune response that would deal with COVID-19 suddenly would be attacking the pancreas. And that's how you develop type 1 diabetes. What's happening when COVID-19 comes into the body, I wonder, is COVID-19 comes in with the cascade of all of this inflammatory stuff, and the body just starts responding galore, and maybe there is a miscommunication of what's healthy tissue and what's not healthy tissue, and that's why it starts attacking the pancreas. I don't know, I'm not a researcher, but I'm just thinking out loud with a lot of the things that I know about this, the way the body works. That seems plausible as to why this would happen. I think instead of calling it a type 4 diabetes, for example, we could call it coronavirus-induced type 1 diabetes. Because they used to call type 2 diabetes adult onset diabetes, because most people who got type 2 typically were a little bit older, and so they called it adult onset. Well, now kids are getting type 2 diabetes, so they had to stop calling it adult onset. But I wonder if we called it coronavirus onset diabetes, type 1 diabetes. That would be interesting. Although new onset diabetes has been observed in some people with COVID-19, the relationship between the two appears to be complex, and there's still way too many questions that remain. Morris said the charity welcomes the launch of this new global registry. Dr. Katarina Koss, a senior lecturer in diabetes and obesity research at the University of Exeter, also a consulting physician in diabetes, was not involved in this letter. She said via email, it may be that the new type 2 diabetes cases are occurring in patients who already had undiagnosed problems with metabolism and high blood sugar levels were a response to the infection. And that's true. We know a lot of people deal with metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance, and maybe COVID-19 hits those people that are already teetering on the edge of developing type 2 diabetes, and boom, this cascade of inflammation just sends them over the top. So isn't that really interesting that they're now connecting that diabetes might actually be triggered by COVID-19? And of course, it underscores yet again metabolic health. It underscores the people who are getting the most symptoms from this tend to be those people who have the worst metabolic health. Which begs the question, why aren't we hearing more about how you improve your metabolic health? Now, you and I both know why we're not hearing that, because there's a lot of, especially on the news, on television, there's a lot of sponsors that are food companies. And if you start talking about, oh, you know, all that junk food that you eat and trying to comfort yourself with in the midst of the lockdown, yeah, that's the reason why you may be a little more susceptible to COVID-19. Now, you can't say that out loud when you've got people lining your pockets with money to promote their goods that you're going to now talk against. No, you're not going to do it. So they stay silent. I am waiting for an ethical medical group to stand up and say, you know what, the charade is up. We can't keep hiding our associations with junk food companies all at the altar of trying to stay afloat and be a business and make money when real people are dying, when we know the answer. And I honestly, in my heart of hearts, know that these doctors who promote this or stay silent on knowing what the impact that this junk food is doing, they know, and they're complicit, and they're okay with it. And that's unfortunate. So, not all is bad news, though. I have another story here out of Brainerd Dispatch. And this was really, really, really encouraging, you guys, because we now have a medical doctor there. And there is his picture. I've actually met this guy at one of the obesity conferences I used to attend. And he is doing some amazing work. As you can see, he's a young guy. But he is spreading information about keto, because what he's found is since COVID-19 came out, all these people are now suddenly interested in eating better and turning to keto. One epidemic is exposing another, according to this obesity specialist. And he wants to help spread the low-carb, high-fat message to everyone that wants to know in the midst of this pandemic. I was always a college athlete who got by eating whatever I wanted, says Dr. Eisenschink. the chairman of hospital medicine and the head of the weight management section for Essentia Health St. John's Medical Center in Brainerd. And that all changed in medical school. I gained 30 to 40 pounds in med school, all while exercising and eating what I thought was healthy. He says he got fat during medical school on a familiar list of natural, virtuous seeming foods. See if you used to eat this way. I would start every morning by eating a granola bar with maple syrup, low-fat Greek yogurt, and orange juice. I think we all had that breakfast at some time. Before I'd go out for a run, it would be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with some sort of protein bar. In the evening, there would be a meat and a veggie, but also a very large quantity of starch, like mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, you name it. The 6'4" University of Minnesota and Mayo Clinic trained physician says he put on so much weight during these years with daily runs and eating healthy that he quickly hit 235 pounds. He did a duathlon, running and cycling, and they put him in the stallion category, which I guess is the chunkiest category. His epiphany finally came in the fall of 2016 after he competed in his first Twin Cities Marathon. He trained all summer long, logged 450 miles of training. He was eating the way he thought he was supposed to be eating. He ran the marathon, got to the end, and he said he lost 7 pounds. And he said, I remember thinking to myself, I can't possibly run my way out of this. He fell into the trap of thinking, okay, I'm an athlete, I run, I can eat whatever I want because I'll just burn it off in my exercise, and that's not at all what happened for him. And yet, how many people still believe that? I think we have a lot of people that still believe that. So faced with the choice of running even harder and eating less, he turned to low carb, high fat, looking at all the growing literature about this way of eating, also known as the ketogenic diet, or keto for short. So I started cutting carbs, increasing fats, did not do any exercise at all from November 2016 until May of 2017. And in that time, I lost 25 pounds simply by cutting carbs and intermittent fasting. So at that point, I was like, I can't not utilize this with my patients. So here's a medical doctor who thought he was doing all the right things, keeping in mind traditionally trained medical doctors don't get much training on nutrition. He had to learn for himself, and he had to see for himself what it was all about. And like so many doctors who do decide to try this for themselves, what he discovered was, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I have to start using this with my patients. And so he did. Since then, the hospital medicine and board certified obesity specialist has dropped another 15 pounds, with COVID-19 pushing the health cost of obesity and related metabolic conditions even higher. Keto has now become his very first tool for anyone who comes to see him. Through my own struggles, I gained a deeper understanding of nutrition and physiology, which then led me to question conventional paradigms of weight, nutrition, and metabolic health. It changed my clinical management with inspiring outcomes, and it has also provided me the ability to educate other healthcare professionals while also increasing job satisfaction, countering burnout, and adding joy. Can I tell you, of all the people I have ever interviewed on my podcasts, the greatest reaction I get is those medical doctors who had their eyes opened to how much they were unhappy in their job and unhappy with what they were doing. And it wasn't until they found low-carb keto and they started using it with their patients, and they started taking a type 2 diabetic off their insulin and their diabetes meds, and they started preventing procedures from happening that would have definitely had to have happened in the past. And they see patients actually losing weight. Those doctors look forward to going to work every day. And we have to ask ourselves, when we go see our doctor, does your doctor look like he's happy to be there? If we're being honest, most of them look grumpy and look tired, and they're not wanting to be there at all. And they're dismissing you. In fact, the whole model of seeing you in like 5 to 7 minutes and then you're in, you're out, it's so impersonal. They really never get to know who you are. And so a lot of these low carb doctors are like, well, we know that model sucks. So now they're budgeting half an hour. Some of them on your very first visit, some of these low carb doctors like this gentleman, they'll spend an hour with you the first time they see you to kind of get to know you, what your goals are, what you want to do, and then to actually teach you principles that will make you healthy. And so I'm loving that we have more and more of these doctors now coming to this revelation. For decades, the diet status quo in the US has depicted weight loss as a simple process of exercising more and eating less. Fewer calories, less dietary saturated fats like butter, coconut oil, and animal fat. This was the calories in, calories out dietary belief, reflected in the calorie counts at the counter of fast food franchises, the dietary guidelines that control the food offered to our children in their school lunches, as well as the fare served in hospital cafeterias, where they will gladly serve dinner rolls and vanilla pudding as long as they're low fat. That was always the funny thing when I was a kid in elementary school growing up in Pensacola, Florida. You would get chocolate milk, but it was low fat chocolate milk. I'm like, okay, does that suddenly make all that sugar you put in that chocolate milk healthier because you made it low fat? They seemed to think so. Health food in this depiction has no place for savory cultural meals like pot roast, lamb, roasted chicken with the skin on it. The so-called Mediterranean diet, DASH diet, plant-based diets all advise better health through low calories, rich in whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and only a small amount of lean meat and fish, and being sure to avoid all high-fat, high-calorie, cholesterol-laden foods like cheese, butter, red meat, and eggs. Cheese, butter, red meat, and eggs. That sounds like my diets. The standard diet of care, has been put forward on the pathway out of obesity and heart disease, adult onset diabetes, and hypertension. The same conditions mostly managed with medicines, treated as chronic conditions. In other words, they have forever seen obesity and high blood pressure and heart disease and diabetes. They have all seen these as you get older, they are inevitabilities. That's what this chronic is all about. And that once it starts, you can't slow the progression. It's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse until the good Lord decides to take you home. That's what they've believed. And they found that these patients are at a greater risk of the bad outcomes from COVID-19. So the answer to what we should eat is suddenly much more important than it's ever been before. So this Dr. Eisenschenk, who is the region's first board-certified obesity medicine physician, said these are not necessarily chronic progressive conditions at all. They can actually be reversed. And today he uses what he's developed, a ketogenic food pyramid, to use with his patients and with the same confidence as if I were to prescribe a drug. Can you imagine if you go to a doctor and with the same excitement about putting you on a cholesterol-lowering statin medication, he's putting you on red meat and eggs and non-starchy vegetables and butter? How giddy could you be? And of course, for him, he knows the results that are going to happen because of that. Whereas, how many doctors really know the results they're going to get from putting a patient on a drug? At best, when you put a patient on a drug, well, maybe, maybe it'll put a pathological change in the number on some tests. But is he really concerned if it's going to work or not? And if it doesn't work, oh, well, okay, it didn't work. And he moves on. Whereas if you recommend keto, it's going to be a little better. I do it by saying, if you do this, you'll feel better, your weight will improve, and we can probably stop you off of medicines. And here's the thing never talked about either. Some people don't have prescription coverage. And so if you don't have coverage for prescription medications and you're a diabetic, you got a lot of money coming out of your pocket. And so if you suddenly tell that patient, hey, you know all that money you're spending on those diabetes meds? I want you to spend it on ribeye steaks now, because you're not going to have to spend that money on that diabetes meds much longer. It's powerful. With the help of a family member who is on board with the plan, he says patients are usually off and running. The first two things I hear from my patients are, I'm no longer hungry. Yeah, anybody can attest to that. And I don't crave the things I used to crave. This is the thing that if you can get people to start keto, then they realize all those things they think they're going to miss, they don't miss at all. It's why I always tell people, you know what, give keto 60 to 90 days. Just give it a period of time. You can survive without your ding-dongs, ho-hos, Coca-Cola, Doritos, and all the other things you think you can't live without. You can live without it for a period of time. And if you eat adequate fat and you eat adequate protein, you minimize your carbohydrates, and you keep the stress out of this whole process, don't be surprised if in 60 to 90 days you no longer want those things anymore. I was the king growing up of macaroni and cheese. I could eat a whole plate of just macaroni and cheese and be a happy camper. And I continued to have that well into my 20s. And then I went low carb. I went Atkins diet in 2004. And within just a couple months, I didn't want it anymore. And that was shocking. It was a lifelong loving food I'd never thought I wanted to live without. And suddenly I was living happily without it. And since then, I have tried it on 2 occasions just to see. And there were quality versions of macaroni and cheese. And I go, why did I ever like this? Like, why did I ever think this was good? But it's because your tastes change. What you thought was good before no longer tastes good at all. And don't get me started on trying to have anything sweet anymore. Most traditional sweet things just blow my head off now. They're so sweet. If those become true, meaning no longer hungry and no longer craving, they have more or less transformed into this way of eating. And at that point, I'm more or less becoming a counselor and coach, helping to fine-tune things. The method reduces healthy eating to just one thing: minimize the release of insulin. If we could get people to understand that weight loss and health changes have nothing at all to do with your calorie intake and everything to do with reducing your insulin, I feel like the next trend that we could really get people on is the low insulin diet. And I think what will bring that on is when we're able to test our insulin at home. It doesn't exist yet. We can test blood sugar, but we can't test insulin. The moment we can test insulin at home, don't be surprised that a low insulin diet suddenly becomes all the rage, and it's going to end up being a ketogenic diet. Insulin is a hormone that's released by the pancreas when fuel from dietary carbs enters the bloodstream. Insulin shunts energy into fat cells. That makes you hungry again shortly after you eat. And in this way, insulin makes us overfed and undernourished at the exact same time. This is why they say, wow, if that person has all that fat on their body, why can't they use that for energy? Well, they can't use it for energy because now they're simultaneously eating carbohydrates that are becoming energy. This is why when you remove the carbohydrates from your diet, it helps you tap into those stored body fat. Now, body fat's a whole lot more complex than that, but in general, that's how a ketogenic diet works, is you're removing this secondary source of energy so that your stored body fat can be tapped into. To avoid insulin, the ketogenic diet promotes eating unlimited amounts of fatty meats, cheese, plant, animal protein, nuts, seeds, vegetables that grow above the ground. And it's possible to eat keto with a vegetarian or plant-based diet, but it's not that easy. Most prepared vegan and vegetarian foods are held together by processed plant oils, vegetable oils, as well as carbohydrates. So think the plant-based burgers. They are loaded with junk, you guys, to be binders. Likewise, trying to eat low-carb, high-protein without increasing fats like butter, red meat, and cream will leave you feeling malnourished and hungry. And I'll tell you, I did that experiment last week where I ate a pound of chicken breast, and I got bad hypoglycemia, which means I had a huge insulin spike from that. Probably not a good idea. So I think they're onto something here. It's not high protein. It's not just exclusively high fat. I think it's the appropriate amounts of natural fat and protein that come in animal-based foods primarily. And if you minimize carbohydrates in that context, then it should be the right ones for you. To ease the skepticism of colleagues who question the high consumption of saturated fat and animal protein with keto, Eisenschink will encourage them to investigate the data showing the evidence base linking dietary cholesterol and saturated fat with heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. And what they'll find, you guys, there ain't much of a link. It's very poor, The data supporting LCHF to reverse on adult onset diabetes, though, continues to increase. So they want to throw that it's unhealthy, and the easy way to respond to that is, hey, look, show me the evidence. And any evidence that they show you will not be a randomized controlled clinical trial. What they show you is epidemiology, which is not that great for having any human application. Animal-based models, so a rat study, mouse study, doesn't really show you that much. Show me the randomized controlled clinical trial that tells me that eating red meat and high-fat diets is somehow going to be unhealthy for you, and then I'll have that conversation. But until that happens, the phone's going to ring and people are going to want to know. Sorry about that, guys. There's a phone ringing in my background. Hello? I'm sorry, is that American Heart Association trying to tell me to shut up? Sorry, I won't, because this message is way too important for me. So you can keep calling, but I'm not answering your phone, I promise you. See, they hung up. They heard me. LCHF has been endorsed by the Obesity Medicine Association. Carbohydrate restriction is now a part of the American Diabetes Association. Virta Health, a keto coaching program in Indiana, recently published research showing 2 years of success reversing type 2 diabetes with LCHF, while researchers at Johns Hopkins recently published a 3-month trial showing similar outcomes. But after 100 primary care patients and 70 obesity consults, Eisenschink says it's his patients' results that sway colleagues the most. On the whole, their A1C gets better, fasting insulin gets better, liver function enzymes are normalizing, triglycerides go down, HDL is up, weight is down, blood pressure down, reflux resolved, and in some cases, sleep apnea and eczema no longer exist. Occasionally, their LDL changes in such a way that it may go up, but if you look at the particle size, it's always the less risky. So that's the large fluffy pattern A, as opposed to the BB-sized pattern B. Both in primary care and the specialties, I think the thing that speaks the loudest is the patients we share. I get these messages from primary care doctors asking, holy cow, what's different? Is this really that powerful? Like, can you see this, you guys? Behind the scenes, these doctors goes, wait. We could have been using keto all along to help our patients, and we're just now learning about this? Why aren't we being taught this in medical school? Why haven't we found out about this before? Doctors' eyes are being open, and I just hope that people like this Dr. Eisenschink and others, I know Eric Westman's been trying to do this for many years. Adam Nally's been trying to do it for many years. There's so many people out there that are trying to preach the gospel of keto, that this is an option. And it's not the answer for everybody, but I think if you've got enough patients doing really well with it, why would you not want to replicate it on a wide scale basis? And maybe we can improve the metabolic health of people to the point that when something like COVID-19 comes around, it's not as devastating as it's been on the poor people that have unfortunately died from it. The medical center recently released the story of Cady Erickson, a 27-year-old nurse from the neighboring town who lost 75 pounds since July 2019 on this program, with her cholesterol and insulin levels going down, her health markers all improving. This has been a program that actually feels like I can do it forever. It's sustainable, and one that I will carry forward with. Eisenschink says young males tend to lose weight the fastest on keto, while older women lose weight, but it's in a slow and steady progression. He feels lucky that Essentia, which is the group he works for, has been supportive. Administration leadership has been on board from the beginning. 2 years ago, we had a low-carb conference, the first one in Minnesota, and during the last year, we had 425 people show up to that conference. So, the connection with COVID, you guys. This is good timing because COVID-19 has brought pressure to find an answer to the soaring rates of obesity and metabolic syndrome, both of which are huge risk factors for people that get the COVID-19 coronavirus. For reasons unknown, the virus has proven far more deadly in people who have obesity, as well as heart disease, hypertension, and adult onset diabetes. What COVID-19 has done, according to Eisenschink, is sort of expose our vulnerability, our baseline state of metabolic inflammation and the metabolic dysregulation. One pandemic, the COVID-19, is exposing another one. And this is something I'm not hearing a lot of people outside of our community talking about. We have had for a very long time, an epidemic of metabolic disruption, of insulin resistance. And I'm hoping, you guys, that all that has happened with COVID-19 in 2020 puts a very sharp line that we have to do something desperately about our metabolic health collectively as a society. And I think what it has exposed is what we've been doing has been all the exact wrong things. And so now more than ever, let's stop playing games. Let's stop kowtowing to the pharmaceutical companies. Let's stop trying to appease corporate sponsors that are big food companies. They are the problem. And if we want to get somewhere in this, we need to reverse course of what we've been doing. And this is where keto comes into play. It's been a great talking point to say to people that should you want to pursue lifestyle changes with us, now is the perfect time. They know that this thing is probably not going away for a while, talking about COVID-19, and it could put me in a vulnerable state quite rapidly. In my medical school residency, I was never taught anything about what I teach now. Just like the cardiologists weren't taught, and the nutritionists and dietitians weren't taught, your average patient, of course, doesn't know either unless they hang out on places like Jimmy Rants. But the current way we're doing things, more meds, more metabolic syndrome, unhappy patients, bigger bills, lower lifespan, we can flip it all on its head. So guys, I hope this is an encouragement to you that in the midst of this pandemic and in the midst of trying to talk to people about what's going on, this is an opportunity to say, hey, look, are you worried about your health? Are you worried about some of the metabolic effects if you get this thing? Are you worried about your weight and your health being compromised right now and that you don't think there's anything you can do? This is our opportunity to promote keto, and I'm so loving that this medical doctor is using it with his patients and using his platform. And here's the big thing, in case you missed it in that story, the hospital is on board. And we need more hospitals on board of supporting doctors wanting to use this. Now, hospitals are a whole nother story because we know a lot of them are kowtowing to corporate interests. This is why you see McDonald's inside of some hospital. Subway gets into a lot of hospitals because it's perceived to be healthy. Getting these kinds of companies out and allowing messages of keto to get in could certainly be a part of the solution. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We're going to come over here to Instagram first, then to Facebook, finally to my YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here today. JimmyRants.com is the website. Good morning, you guys. Bonnie says, I'm in a study also, Jimmy, with my Fitbit, and saying if you are sick with COVID or your heartbeat goes up. I did get sick for only 2 days and nothing big, but my heart rate did go up over the 2 days. Yeah, a few times in the URA study, I have talked about having diarrhea because I did have an upset stomach. Probably was something I ate, had nothing to do with COVID. There was another day that I had like a dry cough, and you got to list dry cough. And so, yeah, so I'm listing those two. Most days it's like no symptoms, I'm good, here's my temperature. Mary Ellen says they are doing a COVID study, or a study, on CBD in 2 countries, Canada and Israel, immune system. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I do take CBD oil as well, and love it. Kat says deep state of ketosis always comes with insulin resistance, but it's physiological and it's not bad. That's the reason you don't break long fasts with high carb diets, and it's the reason you skip the glucose testing. That's interesting. Thank you for that. Mary Ellen says, I appreciate and thank you for helping us. I'm learning and trying to figure out what's good. We need more good people like you. Aw, thank you for that. Sherry says, my husband was diagnosed in January. I think you mean with type 2 diabetes. As a diabetic with an A1C of 9, he went low carb. 3 months later, A1C 6.4. Yep. And as he continues on and tweaks and adds in periods of intermittent fasting and all the things, it'll get easily under 5.5. All right, thank you, Instagram Live. Let's pop you back over there. Let you kind of sit there for a moment while I go over to my Facebook page. Make sure I don't knock over the stands here. What's up, Facebook? Thanks for being here today. See what you have to say about this. Norma says, I thought PCOS was type 3 diabetes. No, PCOS is not a form of diabetes. It's a form of insulin resistance. So type 3 diabetes is Alzheimer's disease. It's where you have diabetes of the brain, where your glucose and insulin resistance starts to make your brain not work properly. And so this is why for Alzheimer's, they put patients on a super high fat diet, like upwards of 90% fat, and using some MCT oil and coconut oil and some other things that would help to get ketone levels pretty high. They're able to not reverse Alzheimer's. Once you have dementia and Alzheimer's, you can't reverse it, but you can slow the progression, that maybe there could be a little bit of revival of the brain. But it's why you don't want to get it to the point where type 3 diabetes gets so bad that your brain health is bad. But yeah, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, insulin resistance, but it's not diabetes. Candace says, I have MS and HS and chronic urticaria, all autoimmune diseases. This stuff is definitely fascinating. Yeah, once you get one autoimmune disease, you are susceptible to multiple ones. And so sorry to hear you have to deal with all that. Mike says, what is the doctor's name? Sorry, I'm in and out of the live. So his name is Dr. Eisen Schenk, EISENSCHENK. There is his picture. He's a handsome young man. And like I said, I met him at a few of the obesity conferences that I've been to. Super nice guy too, and super intelligent. I think I met him when he was still in med school. And he was kind of learning and going through all this. So just as he was coming to an understanding of low-carb diets, ketogenic diets, was when I first met him. Candace says, cauliflower and cheese. Yeah, cauliflower and cheese is probably just as good as macaroni and cheese now. MS causing early onset dementia symptoms during heat waves. Scary. Oh, that's interesting. I'm 36 and used to have 121 IQ, but the MS has messed you up, huh? And she says, thank you for being you. Thank you. Thank you for being out there and joining us on Jimmy Rants here today. Thank you, Facebook. Now let's pop over to my YouTube channel, see what you guys have to say. Shirley says, sorry I'm late. Well, you're never late. Just you came in when you came in. And it's always on replay. That's the fun part, is I leave these up. And yeah, you can watch them whenever it's convenient for you. Kira says, I also have MS. Multiple sclerosis is a bad thing. I mean, it just keeps coming out there, and so many people have to deal with those ramifications. Alrighty, let's see what we got here. All right, I think we have covered everybody's comments, so thank you guys for being here today. But check it out, guys. Like, we're learning more and more things about this COVID-19 the longer it goes on. And don't think that this is the last of it. I think we have so many people that are going to be poring over the data. They're going to be poring over every little detail of every patient that got COVID-19, and especially the ones that died from it. They want to see, is there a commonality? And one of the commonalities that they're coming across is they all had pretty bad metabolic health. And they all had a predisposition for having insulin resistance and some of the ramifications of that. So it should encourage you that if you chose to eat keto, that this goes well beyond weight loss. Controlling insulin, controlling blood sugar, controlling inflammation levels, so many things that keto does for you beyond weight loss, that it should encourage you in your choice to eat this way. So hopefully today's Jimmy Rants gave you that encouragement. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. You got to go follow me right here. Instagram, I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page. So thank you guys for being here. We also simulcast over on my YouTube channel, the live stream there. Thank you guys all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live here, you can watch it on replay on IGTV. Just as soon as this is over, I make a few little notes and I post it right up on my Instagram page. So again, at Living Low Carb Man is where you can find that. We also put all the past episodes up over at YouTube. Type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show, youtube.com/Living Low Carb Man. And then finally, we do have the best of the best and everything that you can possibly want about Jimmy Rants all in one place. It's at JimmyRants.com, the official website. And while you're there, if you check out the videos and you want to support the show, if I've added value into your life, then you can add value back to me by clicking on that donate button through Patreon. So definitely any support you can give would be greatly appreciated. All right, guys, that's it for now. And until next time, we'll see you then.